On February 14, 2025, at an auction house in the American Midwest, a single cast iron skillet sold for $9,750. Not a sculpture, not a relic dug out of a shipwreck, a frying pan, the kind your great-grandmother would have left on the stove. It was made in a factory in Erie, Pennsylvania, by a company called Griswold, and the people bidding that morning were not sentimental. They were collectors who know exactly what they are buying, and they were paying nearly $10,000 for a pan because of one thing the people who made it did to its surface. A step that took skill, took time, and that every American factory eventually walked away from. Over the next 15 minutes, we are going to do 5 things. First, we will look at what a Griswold skillet actually is, and why people who cook on one rarely go back. Then we will get into the lost manufacturing step itself, the thing that separates a $9,000 pan from a $30 one. After that, we will do something most videos about this skillet refuse to do, which is pull the romance apart and look at what the makers themselves were really claiming, because part of the legend turns out to be marketing. Then we will look at the one specific pan that explains how these prices climb into 5 figures in the first place. A small skillet with a spider stamped into its base. And finally, we will look at why the company actually died in December of 1957, and why we genuinely cannot just start making these again. Stay with us, because the real reason is not the one most people give. Let us start with the pan in your hand. If you have ever picked up a brand new cast iron skillet from a shop today, most likely a lodge, you know the feeling. It is heavy. The cooking surface has a faint sandy texture to it, like very fine grit paper. That texture is not a defect. It is simply where the process stopped. Both old and new skillets begin life the same way, as molten iron poured into a sand mold. When the modern pan comes out of that mold, it is cleaned up, pre-seasoned, and shipped. The pebbled surface is the fingerprint of the sand it was born in. A vintage Griswold from the Erie factory feels like a different object entirely. The cooking surface is glassy. Run your fingers across it, and it is closer to polished stone than to raw metal. It is also noticeably lighter, because the walls were cast thinner. People describe cooking eggs on a well-kept Griswold the way they describe driving a car that is far better built than the one they own. To them, once you have used one, the new pan in the shop feels unfinished. And in one very literal sense, it is. A step really was left out. So what did Griswold do that the modern factory does not? This is the step the collectors are paying for. After the raw skillet came out of the sand mold, it did not go straight to a shelf. It went to a grinding station. The skillet was clamped and rotated in one direction, while a spinning grinding head, mounted on an arbor, was pressed against the cooking surface, turning the other way. The two opposing motions sheared away the rough, sandy skin left by the mold. Done well, this polish grinding left a surface that was smooth, even, and in the best examples, nearly mirror bright. If you find an untouched vintage piece and catch the light, you can still see the faint spiral whorls those grinding heads left behind, like the grain in a piece of turned wood. This was not automated. It was a person, standing at a wheel, working one pan at a time, judging by eye and by feel when the surface was right. A factory turning out cookware by the thousand was paying a skilled worker to slow down and finish each piece by hand. Cast iron is not naturally non-stick. It becomes non-stick through seasoning, layers of oil baked onto the surface until they turn hard and slick. The people who swear by vintage pans say a polished surface gives that seasoning a flat, even foundation, so food releases cleaner. And we have to be fair about this, because it is genuinely argued. Modern makers will tell you the opposite, that the pebbly texture actually grips the seasoning oil better and holds it longer. There is no settled winner. Plenty of serious cooks prefer the rough modern pan, so the smooth finish is not automatically superior. What is true is simpler and harder to argue with. The old way took a skilled human in real time. The new way does not. And that difference is most of the reason one pan costs $30 and the other can cost thousands. That is the whole secret. It was not a special iron or some lost alloy. It was a finishing step, done by a person at a machine, one pan at a time, that the cheaper competition skipped entirely. Whether that smoother surface actually cooks better is something we will come back to, because the answer is not as clean as the people selling these pans would like. And the line that matters for the rest of this story is this. This labor was largely abandoned across the American cast iron industry after the 1960s, as cheaper imported cookware flooded in, and nobody wanted to pay for the extra time at the grinding wheel. The modern pebbly skillet is what is left when you delete that step to save money. Now, this is the part of the story most channels stop at, because it is clean, and it is flattering, and it sells. The wise old craftsman knew a secret. The bean counters killed it. We lost something pure. We are not going to stop there, because if you actually read the people who study these pans most seriously, the story gets more interesting and more honest. Griswold's own catalogs branded almost everything they sold as extra finished, and they leaned hard on that language to sound superior to rivals who did no finishing at all. But the most careful collector research points out that a lot of that was sales copy. True milling, actually machining the entire surface dead flat with heavy metal removal, was rare and reserved for a handful of special pieces. Most of what people point to as milling marks is really just the spiral from polish grinding. And Griswold was not even uniquely virtuous about it. In the 1930s, Lodge, the same company whose modern pans we just called unfinished, sold a premium line that was advertised as mirror finished. Other firms offered ground interiors too, for a price. So the truth is layered. The smooth surface is real. The way it cooks is real. The fact that the industry abandoned the grinding step to cut costs is real. But the idea that Griswold alone held some sacred secret is partly a story Griswold told to sell pans, and it worked so well, it outlived the company by 70 years. That matters, because it tells us the thing we lost was never magic. It was a choice. A choice to spend money and labor on a finish, in a market that eventually decided not to pay for it. Hold on to that, because it is the key to why this could not survive. But before we get to how it ended, there is one pan we have to talk about, because it explains why these prices climb into 5 figures in the first place. The most coveted Griswold of them all is not the smoothest or the prettiest. It is a small, plain skillet stamped on the bottom with a spider sitting in its web. Collectors simply call it the Spider. Griswold made it for about a year, around 1890 to 1891, in Erie, and then quietly stopped. Nobody is entirely sure why. The best researcher on these early pans, Roy Meadows of the Wagner and Griswold Society, traced the design to a strange piece of marketing. The spider was a nod to the legend of Robert the Bruce, the Scottish king who, the story goes, watched a spider rebuild its web again and again until it succeeded, and took it as a sign to keep fighting. Griswold's own catalog put it plainly. As the little spider brought success to Robert Bruce, so cooking utensils bearing this trademark bring success to all who use them. It was, in other words, a good luck charm pressed into iron. And here is the irony that makes collectors smile. The one place in this story it earns its keep. The spider logo stuck out from the base of the pan, a raised stamp rather than a recessed one, so every time the skillet was dragged across a stove, it wore the spider away. The very thing that makes one valuable today is the thing the design was busy destroying through normal use. Most got worn flat. Fewer than 100 of some early Griswold patterns are thought to survive at all. And this is where condition becomes everything. Because the spider is not one fixed price. It is a sliding scale of survival. At that same Airworks auction in February 2025, the one we opened on, a spider skillet did sell. It went for $4,000, not $10,000, because the spider on its base was pitted and worn down from a century of use. Compare that to a clean one. A spider skillet with a crisp, sharp web sold at a separate auction in August of 2024 for $10,000. Same pan, same era, 2.5 times the price, and the only real difference is how much of the spider survived being used for exactly what it was built for. That is what rarity actually looks like in this world. Not just age, survival against the odds. Which brings us to the death of the company, and to a date that quietly contradicts the legend. You will often hear that pans like this disappeared after the 1960s. Industry-wide, that is roughly true for the grinding step. But Griswold itself, the Erie factory specifically, was already gone by then. The company had been a family business since the 1860s, run by Griswolds for generations. By the 1940s, it was in trouble, and not from one clean villain. The quality of its own iron had started to slip. It was being undercut by manufacturers making lighter cookware out of aluminum, a more modern material that did not need any of this grinding. And inside the company, there was labor unrest and family infighting over what to do. In 1946, Elie Griswold sold the company and retired, and no Griswold family member ran it after that. It passed to a New York investment group. Then, in March of 1957, a Chicago conglomerate called McGraw-Edison bought it. They held it for less than a year. By the end of 1957, the Griswold name and its housewares were sold off to Wagner, the company's own longtime rival from Sydney, Ohio. And in December of 1957, the Erie factory closed for good. When it shut, around 60 people lost their jobs. After that, anything stamped Griswold was actually made in Wagner's Ohio foundry, and collectors will tell you to be wary of those later pieces because the old quality did not move with the name. Sit with that for a moment, because it reframes everything. This was not a grand tragedy of 1,000 craftsmen marched out the gates. It was a slow, ordinary, almost quiet ending. A family that ran out of fight. A material, aluminum, that was simply cheaper and lighter. Imports that kept coming. And a finishing step that cost money the market no longer wanted to spend. 60 people walking out of a plant that had been casting iron in Erie since before the telephone existed. So why can we not just bring it back? The metal is not exotic. The grinding process is documented. Companies could, in theory, do this tomorrow. And the honest answer is that a few actually do. A small number of modern American makers have gone back to machine polishing their cooking surfaces, deliberately copying the old Griswolds, and their pans are excellent. But look at what they cost. Once you add a human and a grinding step back into the line, the pan stops being a $30 object. It becomes a premium one. The reason the mass market pan is rough is the exact same reason it is affordable. We did not lose the knowledge. We lost the willingness to pay for the labor at scale for everyone. Which finally tells us what that $9,750 auction price is really measuring. It is not the record for what it is worth. Other rare Griswolds have gone for far more, with prices spoken of as high as $17,000 for the right piece. And the value of any single pan comes mostly from rarity, from the logo era, from the heat ring, from condition, the things collectors obsess over. But underneath all of that sits the surface. The thing those bidders were ultimately chasing is a finish made by a person standing at a grinding wheel in Erie, Pennsylvania, in a decade when an American factory still thought that step was worth doing. You cannot buy that new at any normal price, because we decided, slowly and without ceremony, that we would rather have it cheap. The pan outlasted the company, the craftsman, and the entire economy that made it. That is the whole reason it is worth $10,000. It was, quite literally, built to last longer than the country's patience for building it. If this is the kind of story you want more of, the lost step, the real reason, the version nobody else bothers to tell, then this channel is going to be your kind of place. We are working our way through the things America used to build to last, and the quiet, unglamorous reasons we stopped. Subscribe now, and you will be here for the next one before the rest of the internet catches up to it.